I would like to tell you a tale of a transformation that took me several years. It took a very, very long time. I wasn't really raised in church. I mean, I was and wasn't in a way. My mom was a Jehovah's Witness when I was younger, and she... a cop looking in someone else's car? That's weird. There's a cop looking in the back of a what didn't look like a cop car. I was looking in the trunk there. I didn't see anybody else in the parking deck. Strange. Anyway, yeah, my hand's gonna be in the way. Screw it. Where was I? Yeah. So I was and wasn't raised in church. My mom was a Jehovah's Witness when I was younger. As far as I know, she wasn't the, door-to-door, gonna bother every single person type. She's very respectful of other people, of other beliefs, very kind, very patient. She's definitely one of the reasons that I have maintained a shred of sanity. My mom and I are very close. But she would take my little brother and I to Kingdom Hall meetings, which I guess is just church for them, something like that. And this is when we were little kids, elementary school age, and younger for my brother, because he probably doesn't remember them at all. So that's how young he would have been, and he's a couple years younger than me. So anyway, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? I'm old. There we go. Come on. Shouldn't take that long to read my pass. All right. Anyway, what I would do is the little Bible that we had pictures in it, and I would just flip through the pages and look at pictures. I don't remember reading, but I'm sure I did a little bit here and there. I do very vividly remember a picture of a large red dragon over a lake of fire and a kind of garden, another picture of kind of a garden pasture, whatever, with a nice looking stone bridge, maybe? I mean, that was a very long time ago, 25 years or more, probably? I don't know, I'm about to be 31. Anyway, very long time ago. So, but that's all I remember from the books. What I would do is I would just crawl underneath the seat and doodle dinosaurs. Never got into it. My mom wasn't very, she didn't push me into it. There weren't any, little kids' church classes that I went to. My dad is, as far as I can, the best way that I can describe him is a non-practicing Catholic. He, as far as I know, believes, believes in the whole Christianity thing, but he doesn't like organized religion. And he's actually one of the reasons that I don't either. Even when I considered myself a Christian, I was getting more and more disillusioned with organized religion. So fast forward a little bit, still a kid. Mom stopped taking my brother and I. She left the Jehovah's Witnesses because she just did not agree with their stance on medicine and on blood transfers and stuff like that. She knew that if my brother or I ever needed blood, she wouldn't hesitate. And she just felt that the Jehovah's Witness teachings conflicted too much with her love for my brother and I. So, gotta say I'm very appreciative of that. Not that I've ever needed blood, or not that my brother's ever needed it, but still, very appreciative. Like I said, my mom is a very understanding, very caring woman, and we remain close to this day. I'm not that close with my dad. I'm a lot closer. Oh, hello. Jeez. This road needs to be repaired. I'm a lot closer with him than my brother is with him. And closer with him than I am with my brother, I guess. I don't know. Dealing with parents' divorce, and my brother and I, not growing up together a whole lot. Well, sort of did. It's a long story. Anyway, So she stopped taking us. She started seeking out other church kind of things. Eventually settled on non-denominational. I don't know what all she tried between then. If she did try anything else, I don't know. Eventually we moved to the state capital of a state that I'm in. You know what, I can just say it. Why am I even hiding it? I've already basically said it in another video. We moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. We've moved all across the states. And no, not for military reasons. Everyone asks that. Yeah. Anyway. So, one Christmas Eve, I believe. Eve, I believe. Yeah. I'm not sorry. One Christmas Eve, my mom decided that she was going to take my brother and I to church at this new church that she was going to. And I was extremely upset. It was around this time, and I mean, my little brother and I had been raised to say prayers before eating, and, you know, I probably called myself I don't even know if I did call myself a Christian. It just wasn't something that I thought about. You know, like I said, I was raised in it, but I wasn't raised in it. It wasn't an important part of my life. But anyway, it's funny because I think I was in 6th or 7th grade or something, and I believe that this was before, or this was after I started playing RuneScape. That was way back in 2003, and I'm probably getting my timeline mixed up a little bit here and there, but suffice to say that I was kind of going through a dark patch, and I would say that I'm 666, I'm Satan, I'm the devil. Just to be funny. I mean, I wasn't actually, you know, calling myself a demon or anything. You know, that would have been fun. But, hey, we see where that landed me. Got the hair to prove it and all. Like, oh my gosh. Why did I do that voice? That doesn't make any sense for this context. I'm sorry. I hope that doesn't come across as offensive to people, because that's not my intention. It just was the voice that popped in my head. I do so many different voices that sometimes they just kind of come out. Why is gas 329.9? It's so weird. Anyway. God, where was I? Yeah, so the pastor was kind of funny, and he started the whole thing with a clip from the Three Stooges. Like, okay, this guy knows how to not be boring. And I found it funny, and I was kind of captivated, and I started going to this church, but I was still reluctant. I didn't go on Sundays, if I remember right. What I did was go to this kind of recurring middle school event Friday nights. It was called FX or something like that. The guy that led it, I don't know if he was officially a pastor or not. I think he was. Good guy from what I remember. But the guy that led it looked kind of like an early 2000s punk. Kind of. I mean, I know there were a couple, that's like, that's kind of a broad term, but, you know, he was always wearing cargo shorts and sleeveless shirts. He had tattoos. He was bald, but it was always colorful. Like, you know, he wasn't wearing black, and he didn't have that kind of metalhead look, you know, like I have. Much less David from Disturbed, if that makes any sense. But anyway, so this was a way that, you know, they were bringing kids to church. It was a fun thing. There wasn't really a whole lot of, there really wasn't much in the way of preaching. The guy would go over some biblical stories. He would relate them to silly stories that had happened in his life. I don't remember the sermons, quote unquote, but I do remember that 2 of his stories involved him being attacked by geese and touching an electric fence. And I also remember that there was a game that most of the kids played. I don't think I was able to be there that time, where they were doing some kind of weird relay race or something involving an actual dead squid. It was very strange. And I met a really good friend there. That friend and I have since grown apart, but there's no animosity. We've just kind of grew apart, kind of went our separate ways. But that kept me coming back. And eventually I actually started going to church, and I joined a small group. Things were very, very intimate there. I was able to speak with people, speak my mind. The guy that was leading it was somebody that I got really close to. I still respect him a lot to this day. I just disagree with his religious beliefs, of course. And as we were going into this, I was also getting more hateful and more depressed. And I'm not going to say that's because I was a Christian. I think it has to do, I think it's more than that. It's definitely more than that. I mean, I was in middle school, I was going through puberty, I was being made fun of a lot. I wasn't bullied a whole lot necessarily. I mean, people did, especially in high school, people kind of stayed away from me. I tried to give off that loner vibe, and I had long hair, wore nothing but black clothing, had a very thick beard. I just always had this scowl on my face. So people weren't really bullying me much, but in middle school it's awkward, and things that I was learning in church, which shouldn't have made me hateful, probably, ended up kind of making me hateful, because I was getting cocky and I was thinking, I am so much better than these people. Not the church people, but the other people that, weren't my church-going friends. But those people still flocked to me. And it was very interesting, because I was also able to really connect with a lot of them. And occasionally I would try to use that in the way that, the church said, bring your friends to church. Be their friend, use that to get them to church. And back then, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Now it seems kind of like you're exploiting them. But, I don't know. So I mean, my depression was getting absurdly high, and I've had anger issues for pretty much all of my life. They are much, much better than they used to be. I'm a much calmer, much quieter person than I used to be. I say to some people that the person I was before 2010 is not somebody that you would have wanted to know. It's like we're two different people entirely. Still the same hair. Oh yeah, I think I'm gonna keep the beard for a while. Anyway, so this whole time I'm looking for something to kind of fill a hole in me, because I'm super depressed. I'm angry all the time. I'm confused because I see so much in the world that I disagree with, a lot of which was influenced by my faith at that time. And I know I'm hateful towards people, and I had been when I was younger and not a Christian too. I've always been very judgmental, and that's something that I've been trying very hard to curb. I think that's the right word for it. It's difficult, and I think that does stem from some family issues that I'm not going to get into. I feel like that stems from that. I mean, this also kind of coincided with my first and only self-harm attempt. I was trying to cut myself. I didn't break my skin probably partially because I was afraid of the pain, but also because all I had was keys. So all of this is going on, and at the same time, my small group leader, who I'm not blaming, and I know this is going to sound like I'm blaming him, but my small group leader was kind of like saying that saying what he saw in me. He saw this great person, this great leader, I don't remember the names, but he was comparing comparing me to wise biblical figures, and then there was this spiritual inventory test thing that you could take, and it tells you your gifts from God, and I really let that get to my head. I don't even want to say what the gifts were, because it's embarrassing to think back on, and it led to a very rough fight with my first girlfriend. Granted, we were a terrible match for each other anyway. I wish her very well. Doubt she'll ever see this, but for the longest time, all this hate in me and all this confusion, combined with some other issues that I was having that were separate from, religion, that I was praying for a release from, all of it just bubbled up, and I just hated. I was just full of it. I remember I would get so upset because I couldn't find music angry enough to match how hate-filled and how enraged I was. It's sad. Like, I've been told about things that I did, things that I said, and it's not like I was beating people. I mean, my brother and I fought physically a lot, but, I wasn't attacking people or doing drugs or being promiscuous or anything like that, but just the venom in my tone and the hate that I showed people, I don't remember some of the things that I've been told at all. And it's shocking to me. It's kind of scary. And I'm so glad that I'm not that person anymore. It's night and day. That being said, I really do like night, so we're going to say that my current life is night and the past one was day, because, sunlight hurts my eyes. It's not even really bright out right now, like the sun's setting, but keeping them sunglasses on for now. So time goes on. I go through high school, make it to the end of 2009, and something just clicks into place, and I'm overcome with a sense of peace. Now, by this time, I had joined worship teams, I had led and co-led small groups, I'd been with multiple small groups, been with a couple of different worship teams, a couple of different church groups, all within the church that I went to. I was pretty well known, I would say, as the kind of weird, long-haired guy walking around with drumsticks in his pocket and wearing all black. The church was massive, not like one of those mega churches, and I personally believe that they were using most of their money relatively well. Even though I was in kind of a lower level of church leadership, being part of worship teams and helping with some small groups and stuff like that, so very low level, I don't know anything about the funds. But I don't view that church as one of those like mega churches, despite the fact that they had like, I don't know, 7,000 members, like 3,000 or 4,000 of which that regularly attended, I think, at the time that I was going. And this all culminated, after I finally grew up a bit and all that, it finally culminated with me going on a missions trip. I went to Haiti. It was 2011. Went there for 7 days. Had an amazing time. Also had a severe case of depression. A lot of emotions went through me that had nothing to do with the mission trip or with the things that I saw, the people that I saw. A lot of loneliness, just sadness. And that's something that I've struggled with for a long time. I'm much better with it now, but but it was still awesome, but also extremely humbling. And I look back and I remember, just as we were leaving the airport, seeing how run down the town was around, seeing the people at the airport right outside the exit, rushing up and offering to carry your bags in very broken English because they were just looking to do anything for some cash. And then the tent cities. Wow. If you've never seen a tent city, look it up. But a picture's not going to do justice. Tents. That's the person's home, a tent. All their possessions are in a tent. And these tents are lined up for miles, probably, in some cases. Just one next to the other. Not really much in the way of space in between them. People live there their entire lives. Or if not their entire lives, they live there a long time. So the whole trip was, extremely humbling. Thankfully, we weren't really doing evangelism much. The main things we did were run a vision clinic, run an English as a second language camp, which I can't remember if we did the first. I think we actually did that the second trip, because I went back in 2012 for 12 days, I think. 10 or 12 days. Can't remember. I think I said 12 in another video that I posted, but it was either 10 or 12, and I really can't remember. But we were focusing on humanitarian aid, making sure that people had food. The vision clinic, we were working on kind of sanding rough edges and painting buildings that would become orphanages on the compound that we were working on. We were playing with, playing basketball and soccer with some of the local kids at another orphanage. There was one that was a short walk right outside of the compound we worked at. So it was these kinds of things that we did, and that was one of the reasons that I was willing to go. Even back then, when I was, gung-ho Christian, I didn't want to preach. I hated the idea of it. It didn't feel right to me. And for the longest time, I justified that, whenever the pastor would say, we got to go out and spread the word, I justified it by saying, I don't think that's meant for everyone. I think some of us are meant to stay in the background and help the others who have fallen. And I do not take that as me being lazy. I definitely was kind of scared to go reach out to people. But, there's a reason that I have a degree in psychology. I like to help people. And I didn't believe back then, and I don't believe back now, that bringing people to Jeebus is going to help them. I hate the idea of evangelizing, going out and saying, this is, you should join us at church. I did it a few times, and I remember walking up to random people at gas stations sometimes. Long-haired guy, hair down, black clothing, heavy metal t-shirt. Have you heard of Jesus Christ? I was just such a different person. Between 2011 and 2012, my faith had started to waver. A good friend of mine, in good faith, not trying to shatter my faith or anything, shared a unique view of Revelation with me. It's a philosophy, no. It's a school of thought. It's preterism. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Which, I don't believe it now. But what it did to me was it shook the very foundations of what I believed. Because it questioned whether we were in, did we miss the first rapture? There's a whole bunch to it. And so I reached out to, I think, 6 people that I considered kind of father figures and leaders. I have, it's going to sound silly, but I have daddy issues. That's a long story. I'm not going to get into it. My dad and I are on okay terms. Moving on. I don't want to talk about that. So I reached out to these people, and I gave them this link, and I explained myself, I expressed myself, and I said, I'm really confused. I really need help. Well, 5 of them never responded. Liar. The one that did was the senior pastor at the time, who I still respect greatly, though I think he was misguided. Aside from religion, I think he retired. The senior pastor that the church like that took over the church, I don't think is someone who deserves to be a senior pastor. I don't want to really talk ill about this person, but every time I see that person get on stage, it just looks like they're craving glory for themselves. And that always bothered me, and that was actually one of the reasons that I left the church. I was already at the point where I was like gone. I was going once a month or two, and it just didn't feel right. I mean, I would try to read the Bible and I would laugh at it, and then I learned that, this person was taking over, and that was just it. I was done. I was not going to go back. And it's not just because I respected the old senior pastor so much. But anyway, moving on from that. Actually, where was I? Yeah. I think the new senior pastor was actually one of the ones that I reached out to as well. But anyway, the old senior pastor said something along the lines of, I don't have time for this. Here's a link that shows why that's wrong. That's it. And I clicked it. I read through this page. I don't remember a thing that it said, but I remember it didn't help. And I felt so betrayed. And I had been questioning for so long. I was dealing with some internal stuff, just some serious emotional stuff that was driving me crazy. And there were nights where I would be awake all night, crying and in prayer, and like, because I lived with family, I wasn't screaming, but basically screaming at God and saying I hated him, because I was in so much emotional pain. I don't know if I really had a right to be, but there was something that I was desperately needing help for. And then there was that happened, and I didn't know where to turn. So right before this, I'd started collecting money to go to Haiti again. And that's when all this kind of started to really hit me really hard. My faith was just shattered. And I still went to Haiti, still did some great work. I had to evangelize once, and I hated it. Part of the Vision Clinic was that we were giving a message. That they didn't, as far as I know, they didn't have to accept Christianity in order to get glasses and food and some hygiene products. We were, trying to be there to help people, but I guess it wasn't really evangelizing, but they asked me to pray with someone, and that wasn't something I was comfortable with, because even back then, I didn't like sharing my faith in that way, because it just felt wrong to me. It felt wrong to try to, say, hey, you should do this. No. Thankfully, I didn't have to do that any other times. We got back to the States, and I would still kind of go to church on and off. I would meet up with some really close friends, and we would have our own little small group, just the three of us, and that really helped me gain my faith back. But then it would waver again, and this went on for a few years. Skip ahead. It's 2012. I met one of my exes. We started dating. She's a Norse pagan, and I was a Christian. We didn't date very long, but it had nothing to do with the religion. But it was funny because people were looking at me and they were confused. I at the first college I went to a community college and then a university to get my bachelor's degree. I need to go back and get my master's, but that's a story for another time. There was this group of nerds that kind of claimed one of the vacant rooms. Excuse me. Jeez. Claimed one of the vacant rooms to play games and hang out with each other. We called it the Nerd Lounge. And these were my people. You know, these were people that accepted me for who I was. They knew I was goofy. Some of them were Christians, some of them were atheists. My ex, the Norse pagan, was there. She and I are actually still pretty close. Just didn't work out dating-wise. Anyway, and that's something else that... just bit my tongue, of course. That's something else that I had noticed, and I kind of touched on this earlier, in high school. I'm getting low on gas. In band class, there was a small group of atheists that took me in, and I was a freshman, and they named me an honorary sophomore. Or sophomore, not soft. Or was it honorary senior? I can't remember. But they took me in, and a lot of those kinds of people flocked to me. And I think part of it is that even though I was very hateful and very judgmental, I was never a conservative Christian, and I tried very hard to not just tell them they were going to hell or anything. I didn't want to do that. That just seemed wrong. How do I know? You know, I fully believed, yes, but I also acknowledged that I could be wrong. And that's another thing that really shocked me. The Christians and the people in my groups at church wouldn't acknowledge that. At all. Really? I mean, you could totally be wrong. There are thousands of religions. So I think that's one thing that kind of helped keep me grounded in reality, and also helped keep me, less hateful and more open to a wide group of people. So despite the scowl that I frequently wore and the fact that I looked like I should be hanging out with stoners, I had an extremely wide group of friends, from preppy people to metalheads, band geeks, nerds. Pretty wide group. Where was I with that? Yeah. So the Nerd Lounge. I was feeling accepted there, and I'm not saying that drove me away from Christianity, but over time, spending time with those people and seeing how they behaved and how I preferred their company over that of Christians, over, time in classes that I took, classes about other religions that kind of helped open my eyes to, wow, these are the same thing. These are so similar. Science classes. For a while, I was one of those young Earth science deniers. Still very liberal. I know, a very strange combination. I have definitely changed. I'm a lot better now. Yeah. So these kinds of classes, were helpful because they helped me to realize that all of the suffering that I was going through, the constant prayer for healing, for help with these problems that I'd been dealing with, it wasn't worth it, because I wasn't finding peace in this religion. And I was putting myself out there, and I know it's not about works, it's about faith, and clearly my faith must have been smaller than a mustard seed because I couldn't move a mountain. But I feel like after several years of pushing and trying, going on missions trips and trying to lead small groups and trying to read through the Bible, I feel like if there is a God... Whoa, that got really dark. That's funny. There's a bunch of trees behind me. I feel like if there really is a God, they would, they would want to be helpful. I actually always had trouble with the whole "it's not about works" thing. For some reason, that just never sat right with me. And I think that goes back to some of the father figure issues that I have, pride issues that I have, which I'm better about now. But another huge turning point was in, I believe, 2014. Maybe it's 2014, 2015. I can't remember for sure, but I took an existential philosophy class. It wasn't the philosophy class I'd signed up for. I needed to take a philosophy class for whatever reason, they decide you have to take certain classes to get your undergraduate degree. And so I had chosen, I think the one that I had chosen was basically Marxism or something, because, I mean, I kind of lean socialist. I like social stuff. Want to help people. So the class got changed at the last minute, and I decided, okay, cool, I'll take it. And I'd heard of Nietzsche. I hadn't really heard of most of the other ones we got to. I mean, of course, I heard of Plato and the other ancient Greek philosophers. But we got to things like Absurdism, the philosophy of Albert Camus, the philosophy that inspired things like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Life is absurd. It doesn't make any sense. No matter what we do, we're going to die. It's all pointless in the end. So rather than get depressed about it, why not just have fun? Like, avoid the existential horror of death by laughing at it. And you can't see me very well. Whatever. By laughing at it. Revolt. Fight back. Don't kill yourself. Don't give in to ideas that are just designed to control you and designed to, like, help you avoid facing reality. Revolt against the pointlessness of life. Make it matter to you. And that did not resonate with me for a while. At this point, my faith was almost entirely shattered, but I was still going to lunch just about every Sunday with a friend from church, and sometimes we would talk about church. I also met up with those two friends that I mentioned earlier and had our own little quote-unquote small group. It was usually either at one of their houses or at Chick-fil-A. I do miss eating at Chick-fil-A, but I don't go there of my own volition anymore. If they ever stop, supporting the conversion therapy kind of stuff, then sure, I'll go back. That spicy chicken is glorious. But I mean, I was just losing it. Like, I remember I was still wearing a cross necklace probably through 2015. But I mean, I was wearing it to try to convince myself that I was still a Christian. Convince myself that I still believed. And over time, not only did absurdism start to make more sense to me, like, at first I just didn't get it, because philosophy is very difficult. I think that's kind of one of its things. If it doesn't make sense, then it's philosophy. If it does make sense, then it's not philosophy. So, I am not doing a great job of parking. Un momento, por favor. Alright, gotta redo that a little bit. It didn't sit right with me. It didn't make sense to me, and it made me sad. God, it took me like 38 minutes to get home. Ugh. I don't even live that far from work. Stupid traffic. Just got home. Let me turn this light on so you can see me better. Hi! How are you? I'm sorry, that was probably kind of creepy. Where was I? Yeah. So the whole philosophy thing, it hit me. And it made me uncomfortable, and it made me question everything even more. And at this point, I'd already been losing my faith. I had felt betrayed by the church. Every time I tried to open the Bible and read it, I'd laughed. I'd been making excuses for the longest time that, no, this book is just, everything is a parable. Nothing could have actually happened, because that wouldn't make any sense. This is all a story. God's not that hateful. And it dawned on me over time that these thoughts were what I was thinking this to help myself cling to what had given my life meaning, without acknowledging that life doesn't need meaning. It just doesn't. And when that finally clicked, that's when I realized that, so I got 59 miles left. Let's see, today's Wednesday. Yeah, that'll be enough to get back and forth. Checking my gas count, gas amount, whatever. That's when I realized that I hadn't really been a Christian for years at that point. That back in 2012, when my faith was shattered, it wasn't shattered, it was lost. And my eyes were opened, but I wasn't ready to see the world yet. The world is a horrible place. Death and destruction, chaos everywhere. It's been like this ever since humanity has existed. I don't believe that it's getting worse. I believe it has always been worse. We're always at the point of, we're always almost at the point of no return. We're on death's door. I mean, press of a button, nukes can be thrown around. People are dying left and right. Drugs. People are being incarcerated for things they shouldn't be incarcerated for. People that should be incarcerated or punished even more severely for things aren't, or they're just getting away with it, and we all just look at this like it's normal. And then, here in America, every 4 years we go back and forth between red and blue. I mean, existence is suffering. It's pain. It causes anxiety and depression. And you know what? I accept that. I embrace it now. I don't embrace the pain. Like, I'm not, I'm not a masochist or a sadist or anything like that. I just acknowledge that no matter what I do, nothing matters. And that sounds really depressing, but that's the great thing about absurdism. You take that and you laugh at it. I'm not laughing at depression. I'm not laughing at anxiety. I'm not laughing at sadness, existential dread, except for my own. I'm laughing at my own existential dread, angst, despair. Because there's no point in having it. No matter what I do, death's going to come anyway. So I might as well enjoy the life that I have. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to go start being promiscuous or doing all the drugs or all that other stuff. I still don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. I have prescription medications that I take as they are prescribed. I'm not out doing dangerous things. And maybe part of that is the way I was raised, maybe not. So I don't think that I've really changed at the core. I think that I simply lost this fake armor that I was pulling around myself to try to protect myself. And then when I finally acknowledged that I didn't need that armor, everything just kind of clicked into place. I still have a lot of worries, a lot of depression and anxiety. I still have a lot of anger issues. But things are so much better now that I'm not a Christian. It's funny, when I finally admitted it to myself, and I took my cross necklace off and eventually actually threw my Bibles away. I never wanted to I don't want to throw books away, I'd rather donate them, but I think that was a really big turning point for me. I threw away all of my religious material. I think, my roommate just got home, and I've been sitting out here, and anyway, once I finally did that, I was free, and I was at peace. It's funny, they tell you, come to God, because He will grant you peace. Not in my experience.